Hi, Ivy.
Hi, Shital, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Great. Uh, we just be waiting for another, I think, 2 minutes for Hassan to join
Okay,
us. Yeah.
okay, okay, cool. Okay. You
So,
well?
yes, all well here. How's
Yeah,
Kenya?
good. Cold now. It's a cold season, but
Okay.
yeah, we're doing well.
Okay.
Still under not a lockdown, but still fighting with COVID.
All of us are, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But we'll pull through.
Yeah, absolutely. We will.
Yeah, yeah, we will. We will. Thank you. How's it going with you?
Been tough because of the
Yeah,
COVID, but yeah, we're
yeah,
sailing through.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Hmm. So I think we should start. And
Yeah.
when Hassan joins us, you know, when he
Okay.
comes on board, we can just take away from there from
Okay.
him. Yeah.
Okay.
So welcome, Ivy.
Thank
Well,
you.
welcoming all the viewers joining us from the different time zones to the Women's Economic Forum Bangalore 2020, the first of its kind digital summit with the theme being Reconnect, Reboot, Reset, Re-energizing enterprises in the new world, and something about Ivy. Ivy Siobata. Have I
Yeah.
pronounced it correctly?
Yes, you have.
Okay, she is from Kenya and she is the
Yeah.
founder and CEO of the incubator Nest Hub with a degree in business management from the Daystar University, an MBA in entrepreneurship from Netherlands. She has 15 years of experience in business entrepreneurship, advisory, development, management, and entrepreneurship. Great passion in improving healthcare, and she has trained and supported more than 2,000 businesses in Kenya. Wow, that's amazing. And so we'll let you take the center stage
Yeah.
with the topic of the day. Never underestimate the power of an
Yeah.
idea,
Yeah.
transforming an idea into a fundable business plan. Yes,
Awesome.
yes, Ivy. The
Thank
stage
you.
is all
Thank you,
yours.
Shita. Thank you so much. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from everywhere for everyone who's watching. Thank you so much for having us. I mean, this is a great idea, and I think I always love it. From this year, we were in March in Egypt, so now we are again in India, in Bangalore. So I mean, this is a great place. So as you said, my name is Ivy, a passionate entrepreneur, passionate about entrepreneurship, and especially for women. And so today we're talking about, an idea, what is an idea? And I want to start there. For me, I always say an idea is one thing that you see and you're always saying, this is what I can do. This is what I want and this is how I want it. And you're walking around every day and thinking, what do I need to do? You see ideas and you say, yes, actually, why can't we have a car? Why can't we have this? And those are the ideas that we look at. And ideas begin from vision. Is actually visualizing your idea and looking at it and say, this is what I can do, and creating a whole vision. And as women, as entrepreneurs, our work is to have vision and to have understand what is going on. Then from there, after when you have your vision, then you understand what is the purpose of my vision. How can I meet up with my vision? How can I create purpose out of it? And that is where we have to look into ourselves and ask ourselves, what is really our purpose? Because that is where our ideas, our business ideas come from. Then from purpose, then you're able to understand really from my purpose, this is what I can meet my a need for other people. Because I always say ideas is not about yourself. Ideas is about communities, is about countries, is about, getting it right with other people. So ideas about purpose. What is really your purpose, and what is it that you want to do for other people? Of course, that you're making money out of it, but what do you want to do as purpose? Then from there, able to define the problem. What is the problem that you want? Yes, my purpose is to actually meet the needs of entrepreneurs, but really, what is the problem that I want to meet? The problem is the fact that I want to make sure that for entrepreneurs that start their business, they're not failing as much. Yes, we're going to fail sometimes, but at least you shorten the span of failing and also loss of money. Then from there, what is the solution I'm offering? From my purpose, from my vision, from my problem, this is the solution. And then from there, we're looking at the solution is, this is the solution that I'm offering that will meet the purpose of the person that I'm meeting it. And that is where now the idea and fundability comes in. Then from there, we're looking at what is the market size. You're looking at who are you going to meet with this idea. Then you're looking at, these are women who are 20 or 30 years, and this is what they need. So that is your market size, able to understand your market size. Then you create a minimum viable product, which is now what you practice and look at and say, this is what I can give to the market that I've identified, and from my passion and also from my purpose. And from there, I always say, as an entrepreneur, even you have your idea, you have to remain flexible, because flexibility is what changes everything. Because
Absolutely.
an idea, you can have an idea today, but it changes as you meet people and understand what they want. So flexibility is very key when it comes to ideas. Then another thing is boldness. You have to be bold, because you have so many ideas. I mean, if you look at you, Chantal, I'm sure you have so many ideas that you've started, but because you're not bold, and maybe one of the times you're thinking, no, it can't work. But I always say to women, be bold, start that idea. It will fail, yes, but at least you've started. It's better than just sitting and always dying with your ideas. Yeah. So that is it. Yeah. So ideas are powerful. I always say ideas are powerful, and their ability to transform our communities, our families, our children, our countries. So you have to begin somewhere and work with your ideas. Yeah.
That's awesome, and that's so lovely. It's been great to hear your viewpoint on this. Would like to know more about the vision that you spoke and the purpose that you spoke. Should it always be community oriented, or that is the bigger picture that you want someone to get? How does it work?
For me, I say purpose is beyond you. You cannot have purpose for yourself, because then you are not meeting any other need. Purpose is always beyond you. Purpose, as always, when you discover your own purpose, you discover a purpose that will meet the needs of other people and create jobs. That's where business ideas create jobs, create communities. If I hire 2 people, I have hired almost 5 people, because every family, every person you hire has a family, and every family has other people. So you are creating a whole a whole purpose for everyone, and creating. So it's all about communities, and it's all about meeting the needs of families and homes. Yeah.
So you're saying take along people with you and
Yes.
build on your ideas slowly, step by step.
Exactly. And sometimes, I mean, Chantal, sometimes you realize even your business ideas will need collaboration. I always say,
Absolutely.
this time where we are at right now, you don't need to work with a business idea by yourself. Look for collaborators. I am very strong at one thing. You're very strong at another thing. Why don't we come together and create a and work on it, and then understand all the nitty-gritties of how we need to make money and how we need to share about it. So from India, from Kenya, we can partner and collaborate with that. And that's why I encourage women. Collaboration is key in business ideas. Don't be so, you cannot move far. In Africa, we say, if you want to go far, carry people along. So carry people along, carry collaborators along. It's not about money all the time. I know we start business and we think, so yes, it's about money, but we can share this money and understand and reach as many people as we can with our ideas. So it's all about collaboration and working together as much as possible. Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
and when you are climbing and when you are held by and when you hold another 5 people, you're working
Yes.
together for a common
Yes.
goal, so that gets you where you want to be.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So true.
Absolutely.
There's this one point that you mentioned about
Yes.
flexibility.
Yes.
Flexibility in reworking the vision,
Yes.
or what did you exactly want to say in that?
I always say your ideas, your business ideas, you have to be very flexible. Because one of the things you realize that when you start an idea, you think with your own mind. Then you go out there and you discover, you know what, this is what my customers want. And you
Okay.
have to be flexible with that. Then you go out and you realize this is what my funders want, and you have to be flexible with that. Then
Okay.
you keep on being flexible in such a way that you're changing your ideas as it goes on. But if you stick into what you think, then you're just selling an idea to yourself, not meeting the needs of other people. So flexibility is very key.
Okay, so the
Yes,
ability to be flexible
yes,
with your
yes,
idea,
yes,
with your modus operandi as to how you
yes,
want to carry forward every step.
yes, yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
So,
yes,
yes. What about funding? How does
yes.
funding work?
Funding, I mean, every business idea you have, of course, you will need to look for funding. And there
Absolutely.
are very different ways of looking for funding, I say. One is about looking at your savings,
Okay.
and, looking at what you have yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, your ideas don't have to be, you don't have to start big. And that's where your problem starts. You can actually start with what you have. And even
Okay.
sometimes there are businesses that we've had that really do not even have funding, but they actually use funding from other people. And what do I mean? You have dresses that you sell in
Okay.
wholesale. I come and pick one, I go and buy and go and sell, and then I just pay you back what you have and I keep my money. I don't
Okay.
need funding for that. I just
True.
need to raise funding within ourselves. Then,
Okay.
of course, there are families who believe in us, our spouses, our families that believe in our ideas. So they are able to put up some money for us. We're able to carry also along, as I said, collaborators, people that believe in your ideas. And that's why pitching sessions are very good. Go out there. If you have an idea, go out there and talk about your idea as much as possible. Someone will come and look at it and actually think that it's viable and will actually be able to give you money to work on it. So it's all about you. As I said, boldness is key. You have to go out there and look and pitch your ideas. It's not about money. And this is where entrepreneurs suffer a lot, because they always think, yes, I have an idea and I don't know how to go about it. But you have to go there and look and see who can help you fund. Banks also are a good idea where you need to go. Women enterprises funds that are there that we have to go. We have COVID now has given us an opportunity to have a lot of funding that is going on. This is where
Absolutely.
we need to work on. And as I said again, collaboration. There are women today that are looking at us that have money sitting somewhere. We can support other women that really want to go into business in our communities. And that's how we give back to our communities. Yes.
True. Absolutely
Yes.
true.
Yes.
And tell me something about our people, our viewers would like to know about more about Incubator Nest Hub. What exactly is it?
So the incubator Nest Hub is a very interesting concept. We began almost about 8 years back as a
Okay.
business advisory. So we're
Okay.
looking at business advisory, working with companies, working with people, individuals that have businesses, and just trying to help them in terms of coaching and mentorship. So we realize that we are really not reaching out a lot. So this year, actually, early this year in 2020, we said, you know what, we really need to work with micro and small entrepreneurs. And really, most of them are women. Most of them are women. And no one wants to go to that center because it's a very small market. It's a big market, but very small in terms of funding and also in
Mm-hmm.
terms of money that they make. But I said to
Mm-hmm.
myself, this is where the impact is, because every time you support a woman who is in the micro, who is selling tomatoes on the street, you're supporting an entire family and
Family.
you're changing the story for these women. And this is where I wanted to go. So we began by changing the story and said, you know what, let's do a hub. And in March, we were able to change our business into an incubator Nest Hub, where we're supporting micro and small entrepreneurs in Kenya. And you're working with them, and especially women. And we say, you know what, you don't have to be big. We just want you to have an idea and we
True.
can move with it. And women are passionate. I always say women are carriers of ideas. And once you support a woman, and that is it, you're able to change the story of all the women there. And so
Absolutely.
we come up, we meet women that are really doing very small businesses, but they have the drive and they have the boldness and they just need a push. So we're able to coach them, we're able to mentor them, and we're able to work with them in groups, and we're able to also offer them services where they meet other people, even not even in Kenya, outside Kenya, just to hear what ideas are there and to have them dream and have them enlarge their dreams and enlarge their businesses. Yes,
That's so lovely. That's so
yes,
lovely. So, actually, a nest for the women entrepreneurs to come in,
yes,
be mothered by all
yes,
you
yes,
people. You'll
yes,
coach them, you'll help
yes,
them collaborate, You all help
Exactly.
them understand. Do you all
Yes.
help them in funding as well, to find
Yes.
collaboration in funding as well?
Yes, yes. So we've been doing a lot of funding in small funds,
Okay.
about $1,000, about $100,
Okay.
very small amounts of money that they can start with. And this is all they need, and they're able to multiply this. So this is how we're starting. And then from the end of the year, in 2021, we'll be able to look at bigger funding because we want to grow them stepwise approach. And some of them really, they've come in and they really don't need money. They just need
Hmm.
someone keep on pushing them
Push.
and working with them so they can come up and say, Ivy, let's talk about my business. How do I find more clients? And then we're able to say, no, yeah, let's do a Facebook page now that you're
Okay.
good and start delivery. So those are things that we're doing. Yeah.
So you
So
help.
very small funds of 100 that we've started with as we grow their businesses.
Lovely. So you help
Yeah.
them strategize even
Yeah.
digitally on digital platforms when they might not have that much of experience.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
So we have team members that are able to work with them digitally, and especially this transition area when we had COVID and people had locked down, and most of
Hmm.
their business maybe having markets and all that. So we're able to help them transition to that. Some of them we've helped them create WhatsApp groups as simple as that. And for us, it's easy, but
I
for
know.
them, it's not something they know. So
So
WhatsApp
true.
group, using WhatsApp business, looking at just Facebook pages, working on deliveries, even looking at some of them, we're trying to say, you know what, you can actually create an app and now start picking up numbers of people and creating a whole community tribe for yourself, for your business. Very small ideas that can make transform their businesses.
Absolutely. So lovely.
Yes.
So amazing work that you and your team at the Nest Hub are doing. It's amazing. What
Thank you.
exactly is the time frame that you would suggest out of
Yeah.
your experience that
Yes.
a person should actually keep to get onto the momentum for the
Mm.
business to start flowing?
Mm.
You know?
For us, we move with nine weeks. We can
Okay.
actually get a business up in 9 weeks, depending
Okay.
on on how big the business is. Of course, up to 12 weeks also is something that we work with. But I
Okay.
always say there's no time frame because we have to keep on working together. And that's
Okay.
why apart from just working on the business idea, after even we work with the women, even after they have left the program, we still have coaching sessions after to make sure that these businesses are sustainable. So it's a continuous relationship that you have to have because every business keeps on going in different stages.
Absolutely. I just
Yes,
love that point of sustainability that
yes,
we have seen.
yes,
You would have surely seen a lot, and even for our viewers, that there are lots of times we come up with ideas and then we try to take it up, and then but the
yes,
sustainability is not there. 1 year down the line, you're
yeah,
out
yeah,
of
yeah,
creativity, and
yeah.
that's when you need the push and the motivation the most.
Yeah. Chantal, maybe just something I need to mention. Sustainability for us is very key, and I'm a firm believer of sustainability. And
Mhm.
yes, we have a lot of funding comes in. I always tell people there's a lot of funding coming in,
Okay.
but it's about creating communities that really can create sustainable businesses. So I don't
Mhm.
believe in just giving money as grants. I believe in them working onto ideas and working for themselves. So we are just not going to do trainings for the sake of training. We will do trainings and we have things that they need to action plans that they need to work on and they need to move step by step even after we give the grant and even after that, even if it's a loan. So we create as much as possible sustainability and for them to own the process because that's the only way we can create sustainability at the end of the day. And then for them to understand the idea as much as possible and interact with their customers. So sustainability is key. And even when we're talking about grants, which are it's a very favorable thing for many people. Grants, yes, are good, but it's how you create a sustainability about grants. Do you give grants all through? Because there are many times we've given money. I mean, long time ago we've given money, and those
Mhm.
people businesses are never there. So it's a matter of how do we change the story and have performance indicators for these women and say that even if we're not giving, we're giving small amounts. And that's why we begin with small amounts so that we can see the sustainability and they create money for themselves. So it's
Okay.
not a dependency syndrome that we're creating in our community. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And what about the government policies or the legalities of, certain sectors of work or
yeah,
certain sectors of investment or certain types of businesses? Do you
yeah.
all help in that as well?
Yes, I mean, we really involved a lot in policy work with other hubs. I mean, one of them is a lawyers hub that we're
Okay.
trying to create policies, with them, and different hubs also. We are also in a group of hubs, and policies really do not favor micro and small entrepreneurs, and also even funding for women, and also encouraging women a lot into other areas of business like technology and looking at digital transformation. Healthcare also, which is run by women a lot, but women are still not involved. So those are things that we're still working on to create innovations around there. And in 2021, we're moving the innovation of healthcare. I'm very passionate. So it's a matter of how do you create innovations and include the women themselves to actually create these innovations around community care, around pregnancies, around children under 5, and see how it can work along.
Hi, this is Malika just testing. Sheetal ji, hi.
Hi, Malika. I can't see you though, but I can hear you.
Just try that as well. Now, cool?
Good.
Sounds good? Great.
Yes, absolutely. Does. Yes.
I was just having some trouble, so I shot out a messenger, but yeah, now I'm sorted.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you're in New Delhi?
Yeah. I'm in Gurgaon at the moment.
Okay.
And you guys are, sorry,
Yeah.
are you guys based out of Delhi? Oh, you're based out of Delhi?
No, me, Chennai. Ivy?
Yes, sorry
Yes.
about that.
No problem. Thank you so much, Ivy. That was such an eye-opener with how do we transform an idea into a business funding plan. So it was great to have you on board and share with us your lovely experience all the way from Kenya. And you have been conferred with the award of the iconic woman creating a better world for all. Thank you so much, Ivy. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Much love from India.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, so how's Delhi? How's the lockdown?
Delhi, oh well, I'm not complaining because I'm stranded with my parents at home. So
Okay.
I'm like being the privileged kind of person. And we're also working with technology digitally. So we're helping a lot of people in healthcare. And, I mean, I'm really grateful that I can be of use right now. But other than that, it's just a bit unfortunate, yes. And we're hoping that everything eases out a lot more. Chennai, I know, is worse. You want to comment on that?
It's kind of getting better.
Yeah.
At least the situation, the lockdown, it's getting better, but Sundays are the complete lockdowns. So,
yeah, but I was also talking to this friend of mine. I mean, because we used to play tennis, right? And so I have a few friends in Chennai, and I definitely think that the South in general is a better behaved public. I'm hoping this is not a public. Yeah, this is not a public conversation.
it is.
Thanks.
That's okay. I'm so sorry. Okay, we should start, I guess. Okay. Welcoming all our viewers joining us from different time zones to the WEF Bangalore 2020, the first of its kind digital summit with the theme being Reconnect, Reboot, Reset, Re-energizing Enterprise in the New World. And here we have with us gorgeous Malika Bajaj. She is a digital image consultant, digital entrepreneur, child right protectionist from New Delhi, India. She is the CMO of Apta Doctor, New Delhi. She's the board of directors of very many places and very many organizations, but I will name a few. Little Yellow Beetle Media Private Limited, a 360-degree media and branding solution Digital Studio, Global Education Nagpur, Media Communications and Digital Consultant, IIT Bombay. She's a recipient of very many awards. Without much ado, we would like to hear your views, Malika, on the topic, online trolling on the rise. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sheetal ji, for the very, very not so humbling introduction. But no, you definitely make me sound busier than I usually am. And I'm hoping everyone is safe. I'd like to obviously take this opportunity to thank the Women Economic Forum, Harbeen ji, for bringing this together amidst such a, I mean, well, people are saying such a hopeless time, but I think it's always looking upwards. So we're very excited, and also for trusting me for something so severe that is, you know, attacking our society per se. So without much further ado, I think I'm going to sort of dive right into by saying, until digital life took over, all communication took place in, you know, defined and hierarchical frameworks, which means that content was supervised and structured. It had an introduction, a conclusion, a middle, and it was all sort of, you know, done by a trained environment where everybody was following rules. There was also, you know, a certain code of conduct and tonality. When with digital, though, being an open framework, it completely lacks its defense. And like the humans who have a lot of, you know, defense lawyers, media lawyers, etc., I want to clarify as a media academic that right in the beginning that the medium is the message or the massage. Well, we're not going to get into that one, but the medium is technically just the message, and that it's not technology that is causing the damage that we're sort of, you know, feeling, or we're feeling attacked, or we're feeling like there's too much technology around us. The truth of the matter, I reckon, is that it's the users, it's us. And for all the behavioral economists joining us, or people who are interested in that space, joining us in this chat, will resonate that this behavior of online content production, which is, you know, presenting choices in a certain ways, even unintentionally, can nudge people to change their behavior in predictable ways. It creates a vortex that we very quickly then get sucked into, and we lose control over our thoughts and our time. And while I'm not going to deny that 90% of us here are kind and there is integrity in our intent, we solely communicate to engage and collaborate, that there is a minority 10% that is a major concern area. They're a different breed of people. And while online, you may not be able to spot them at first or second, and, you know, you have to interact with them multiple times. Offline, we've all been trolled. You know, in our personal lives, it's a taboo topic. No one brings it up, particularly in, you know, South Asian countries. And I'm saying this because we're speaking to a global audience right now. South Asian countries where, you know, we still live in joint families. We still have not so many nuclear families, and we're taught a certain way to talk to our elders, respect their views, don't answer back. Very often, you know, we find ourselves stuck in a situation in a private room, or even at a wedding, or like awkward, you know, social communications, wherein we find a lot of people saying nasty things like, you've become so ugly, you've become so tan, you've become so black, who will ever marry you? Why are you getting so tanned? Oh my God, now after my training, I put on weight. They're like, oh my God, you've become so fat. And they would say these things which are body shaming to begin with, but also, like, I've seen so many women who've done exceptionally well, or people who've done exceptionally well in the society. There'll be, you know, a few odd people who'll step up and say things like, oh, you've got a sugar daddy. Oh, where did you sleep to get up so far? You know, so there are people who are, there are those very few people who exist who lack self-control, who are more often than not, you know, insecure, unstable, and, you know, we need to be kinder to them, you know, because unfortunately they feel better by insulting people. With online, the fact that we're having this, subject to discuss today also is becoming a bigger reason, because except for the fact that it's not any different, it's becoming a bigger burning concern, because while these people, the minority of these people, still prefer to remain private so that they don't sound bad to the larger masses, they now have options of being anonymous. There are fake profiles, there is anonymity, there are no pictures, there is very little information about themselves, and they end up causing a lot of harm individually to begin with, socially, because your friends are reading this, your families are online, and more so now through our professional circles, which are not just limited to, you know, your office and geographical space, but they've become more global. And it begins to affect then, you know, even for someone like myself, I can speak from experience, affect the brands I'm representing, or so on and so forth. And these trollers, while no one knows them, they don't sound bad to their own circle. They enjoy this negativity, the toxicity, it's their drug. But for the purpose of this talk, I want to sort of just put out there, how do you define a troll? Now, it's not someone who is someone stronger or has a different view than my own, or someone imaginary. I get to hear this a lot, particularly now with, people studying, kids studying online on, online platforms. And when we're parenting the parents on new media, they will often say things like, their kids have become too sensitive, or they're just introverts, so they feel cornered and up their wall. Sorry, did I lose you? Yeah. So I just want to say, it's not that, your kids are feeling that it's an imaginary situation. That's number one source of denial that we need to get rid of as a society. Trolls exist. They are people who try to disrupt online communities by posting inflammatory or inappropriate or off-topic content. They're primarily public. They're anonymous more often than not. They incite conversations in chat rooms, comment sections for blogs, articles, and any other type of online forum. And trolls thrive on conflict. So their goal is to incite anger by posting controversial opinions and disagreeing with anyone who tries to interact with them. They frequently escalate into targeted threats and online stalking, or even, to a point of online harassment. Now, once we can, put this and sum this up for ourselves, that it's absolutely non-negotiable to understand that these jerks, and you can pardon my language, but we're using an online platform, so it's allowed. But the fact that these jerks exist, they derive joy out of any kind of reaction. So it's not an imaginary situation. No, as a society, we have not become insensitive. It's just becoming more normal for people to voice these opinions as well, because the platform allows it, or the environment that we're breeding this platform in allows it. So bottom line, they exist. Now, addressing them as real is pertinent to this, gruesome environment we're all living in now, more so than ever before pre-pandemic. Now, all of us are online. The, opinions are also polarized, etc. The one thing that we need to understand is that the trolls, once we understand that they're real, we also need to identify the kind of trolls we're dealing with. And we could possibly not be dealing with them personally. We know people who are dealing with them, or we often see people writing rubbish on posts or comments, or just being stupid about things, or lurking around every corner of the internet. It becomes important to understand why, because there are two types of trollers. The first one are the lurkers. As the name suggests, I'm calling them the lurkers. They're my kind of, trollers, who are just there for fun. They'll attack for laughs and ego boost, or most of them are just harmless and usually unpaid. Now, internet trolls that fall under this category are known for mocking other people, pushing conspiracy theories, and just practicing, some sort of dry humor that satisfies them, not denying the fact that they're also harmful, but they're not as harmful as our next category, which is the paid trolls. Now, paid trolls are the ones that are hired to disrupt communities and dialogue. They're hired by businesses, they're hired by political parties. These internet trolls spread hate. They disrupt communities, they engage in self-promotion, they hack into accounts, they have verified accounts that they're working with, through hackers, and they create confusion. Paid trolls are infamous for pushing, political propagandas as well. And through my research that I was putting out for before, I wanted to sound very smart with all of you. I did gather that a large chunk of the trolling that happens online is either based on political trolling. The second one is obviously news. And the third one is religion. Now, what happens when these people have been identified? Because the areas that we're going to now talk into become so much more important, because they're a part of our everyday dialogue. We're all global citizens. I feel like now more so than ever before, because all the offices are online, our workspaces are online, our friends are online, our geographical boundaries are locked, but we're still communicating with our friends, etc. It's very, very difficult to even allow ourselves or our children growing up in the future to grow up in an environment where we're completely sabotaging the narrative we're exposing them to. So once you identify, trolls, and once you're open to the idea that you're not in denial that this exists, both offline and online, we're often then, asked to sort of just wait it out and simmer things, or just ignore them. They'll go away. No. the most important need of the hour, and maybe that's why we're also having this whole panel today with the Women Economic Forum, is that you need to put them out in public. You need to identify them. You need to take help if required professionally, to go through like, cybersecurity cells and identify these people, defame them in public and make them stop. Because, while one of us in the audience may be strong enough to deal with them emotionally and mentally fit to understand where they're coming from, they're so hypnotizing that a large party of them, particularly the younger crowd that's online, they lead to some serious consequences such as anxiousness, depression, self-harm, have even forced, people in the past we've experienced with episodes like the blue whale, or, deaths becoming a hot trend, trolling to contemplate or attempt suicide, which leaves families and friends to live with the aftermath. And so we need to put a stop on them, because, it's not just something that you and I are having a conversation on. The truth of the matter is that last year, about 126,730 children, essentially content creators, influencers between the age of 10 and 18 have committed suicide. And these are accounts we were concerned about. These were, blue verified accounts, and they're not even like everyday regular accounts. And this is just in the United States.
Okay.
More locally in India, where, our population, 50% of our population is below the age of 25, 68% is below the age of 35. They make up the world's largest ever cohort of, like-minded young people, and they see absolutely no reason why the world shouldn't, run by their rules. It becomes very, very important, to firstly address that online trolling is a serious issue, and the governments and private institutions should step in and start at least addressing the narrative, if not creating, laws and bylaws for addressing the same.
Okay.
And obviously, I think I will applaud the WEF again to get this dialogue initiated. And secondly, I think it's very, very important to be mindful of the content we reshare as an audience online. A lot of us lack, I think, the common sense of frivolously sharing forward stories without identifying the source and its motive. Most trolls, like I said, are either politically motivated, or motivated by news, or are paid to talk about religion. And so we just very randomly, like very naively, will just sort of forward it to all our friends, or make it a story and reshare on our Instagram page or our Facebook page, just because it looks cute, or it's, we think we're sounding very intelligent. But we need to put a stop on it, because this is all initiated, and it's a big market, it's a big economy and industry that is, running over these trolls, that is changing the way our narrative is moving forward. And so we have to put a stop to that. And then again, I think last but not the least, I think we need to teach our kids about new media and its powers, and we need to teach them privacy rights, teach them how much is too much, and when to put a stop on, accepting friends. This is, I think, another very important area that we keep addressing with children, that on Instagram, just to sound famous, they'll keep adding random people, even on their private profiles. But the amount of content that allowing a stranger to get access to, not knowing who those people are, where they're coming from, why are they tapping into your friendship network, I think those lines are now blurred. And so it's becoming more important for us as, adults, to not only be responsible, call out the trolls, watch our internet space and content and what we're forwarding, but also allow, invest in synergizing global content with affordability and reliability being, the two key aims for scalability going forward.
Okay, that was awesome. That was lovely. That was so much in a nutshell. I would like to ask you a question.
Sure.
Do memes, fall into the category of trolls? Meme makers and...
Yeah, I think from a very naive perspective, I enjoy memes. But I think on a more academic space, if you look into the research and you do a lot more understanding of where these memes come from, like I said, there are two kind of, lurkers, and then there are, and they don't have to necessarily be strangers, your trollers can be your family as well.
Family as well.
I think memes, depending on what their narrative is, what their content is, and what are they trying to laugh at, becomes very important. So your subject, your integrity and intent, like I said, becomes very, very important, because more often than not, we're laughing. We find ourselves laughing at religion. We find ourselves, laughing at body sizes, shapes, women. There are so many jokes, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a woman, but so many jokes about husband and wife always being wrong. But, over time, our narrative has become that way, where men just assume that marriage is funny, women are jokers. So I think all those kind of memes collectively need to be, very careful on how we're expanding on this network, because technology is allowing us to multiply our communication to a whole new level. So while our in-laws would make fun of our moms, our entire society should not be making fun of that woman without having personal information about her. So I'm saying, like, those are the kind of things where I personally feel that memes need to draw a line and understand that technology is way more powerful now as a source of communication.
So true, so true. Do you think we should have more strict rules set in by the social media, Insta, Facebook, to name a few, so that things become more refined? There is a parameter and a boundary for everything. Is that even possible? What do you think on this aspect?
No, of course. I mean, left to me, Sheetalji, I would tell all the governments in the world to appoint now, because none of the industries have a digital minister. It's a whole industry which is run on assumption. It's run on chal raha hai sab, like it's okay to run the certain way that we're sort of working in. And it's very gray. There's no black and white, unlike most other genres where, you have laws, where you know how this is right and this is wrong. On technology, because all of us are learning, all of us are growing. And the other thing is also a lot of different generations of people have now suddenly grown into account makers. Different people from different parts of the society have access to technology. Over 3.9 billion users now. So I think in that kind of a space, wherein while technology was trying to blur boundaries and equalize the world that we were living in, what we humans have done is basically secluded into our own societies and our thinking. And made it again our little kitty parties that most of us signed out of to go find, more skills and help enhance our capabilities online. So I think if we make strict rules of what is okay, what is not, have dialogues which are allowed, which are not, make privacy a big concern. That's something that's just so blurred, because our younger audience, like I see on Snapchat, Dubsmash, all these accounts that are just making money frivolously by getting users and eyeballs and allowing these kids to, show their great amounts of talent. These kids don't even know what they're doing with their data. Like, they could be stalking them, their IPs are under control, they know their personal information, their cards are with them, their parents' accounts are tagged to their accounts. And so I think there definitely needs to be more a pilferage on how we're using them. There definitely needs to be policies set out, and more quickly than not, because now with, I think, post-pandemic, our world is looking more digital than ever before.
Absolutely, it does. It's quite scary, especially being a mother, and when you know your children are glued to the internet all the time, being on the laptop, on the mobile, on whatever, and especially during this pandemic right now, when even education has stepped into their lives digitally. So there were times when we used to ask them to be away from it, and now we're like, Acha, okay, now why don't you? Please get on.
No, and I think I'm going to add, like, from a parent perspective, I want to say this: instead of putting your kids away from technology, accept that they are born into technology. Unlike us, they are born as netizens, and so they are very, very okay with blocking or unfriending. That's their language. That's something they're comfortable with. So you don't want to be parents they are blocking off their account or unfriending. In fact, you should make efforts to learn from them and understand the environments they're making for themselves, and on this step keep educating them better so that they don't get into troubles going forward. But I think you should definitely engage with your kids when they're online, so you have an understanding or like a complete stockish eye on whether they're going fine or not. But that's very important as parents, for sure.
Yeah, it does. And it's fun to learn technology from the children, because their perception is much easier like that for them. So it's lovely to learn from them as well, as you mentioned.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's an amazing. Am I audible? Malika, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So it's a lot of fun though. Yeah, yes, absolutely. So so does cybercrime actually help? Does all this complaining, isn't it a long process? See, people of my generation, generally when kids come up, I've had lots of instances where, you know, a lot of other children come up and they go and tell their parents, they go tell their schools, the teachers, that something like this is happening, and they're like, just shut it, it's okay, just let it be, don't
Yeah.
bother, don't get into all these things. But as you mentioned, it does affect them so psychologically, and even about a personal image that they have of themselves, their confidence is shaken. And when they have their closest circle not actually backing them and supporting them, it becomes
Absolutely.
even worse.
No,
So,
unfortunately,
how is it
I
with,
hate to say this. In India, we don't have, you know, very strict media laws yet. Cybercrime cells, though, are effective to quite an extent. But then again, it goes down to how powerful and where you are in the society to be able to, you know, make a louder noise, which is really
Absolutely.
unfortunate. But having said that, I feel like there is hope, because if we teach our children correctly, like I was saying, if someone's trolling them, don't teach them to wait, let it simmer out, or don't teach them to ignore these things. In fact, help them, take screenshots, put it on their profile, make their friends share it, make their schools share that kind of a profile, so that that particular troll per se can at least be identified in their environment and not harass many more children who don't maybe have, you know, parents living with them, or are in boarding, or like, you know, are being raised by their grandparents, or don't have anyone to talk to, you know, because more often than not, parents are at work and they don't know what their kids are up to in school. So keeping those kids in mind, it becomes collective responsibility to train them, to tell them it's not okay. And also, like I said, your online and your offline narrative needs to change now, because your kids learn from that narrative and they go and use the same, you know, communication online, even more naively. And now, because technology has become so powerful and that spread is so large, that you're not just talking to, you know, someone in your neighborhood, you're talking to an entire whole country or globes at this point, an entire globe at this point. So I think it becomes important to educate them, to have open conversations, to not teach them to be okay with being bullied, whether online or offline, and yeah, educate them about, you know, what their role is as a netizen on engaging, like I said, with content which is more affordable, reliable, scalable. Where is your content coming from? Teach them the source of understanding, because, you know, even as parents, as grandparents, sometimes we're just sharing these jokes and these memes, like you said, with our children sitting in our rooms, we're reading them out loud, that we are normalizing the process of trolling in our offline lives that continue online. So I think while the government is going to step up slowly, like they always do, and unfortunately, I'm going to say this on the platform though, but I think we've got, you know, Adityanath Yogi ji right now. I'm not a very, very politically led person, though. I'm just going to put it out there. But I think with the whole Digital India campaign that Modi ji has put out, and the fact that, you know, this recent case of, I'm not going to name the gentleman on the platform, but, you know, the identified human being that is making the news right now all the time, that Aditya Yoginath ji has used internet, has used IP backlacking and, you know, WhatsApp accounts. They've gone into details with the cybersecurity cells to identify threat, to identify, you know, terror, to identify, you know, multiple levels of issues that this one man has created for multiple people to now help. So going forward, I'm hopeful, because people are waking up to cyber security, cyber crime, cyber-led terror, etc. But I think on a school level, on an individual level, it's going to be our responsibility, which it must be. It's like wearing your own mask, right? Like you have to wear your mask, and then only will you be able to save the world from the pandemic. So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the punchline. The last line said it all.
Yeah, wear your mask, both online and offline.
Yeah, absolutely. that is on point. That is amazing. So also, do we have any communities online that help, you know, children, or help people who might not have the support system, as we mentioned, if at all they are facing this kind of situation, you know, help them work towards it, or, you know, get them some kind of you know, way to get out of the situation of trolling? Are there any communities? I'm not very well aware of that, so I'm asking you.
That's a very good question. In fact, you've given a lot of people a business idea. But there are a lot of people who actually help, but not as NGOs, because a lot of people take a back step when things get deep. But I think in the last few months, we've realized where people are not going to offices and are mostly speaking out of their social media accounts. We've been able to save, animals. You've been able to save children. We've been able to, spread information about people who are being not treated respectfully even as human beings, because by putting out memes and pictures about them. So while on the one hand, like I said, 90% of them have good intent and they're out there to collaborate and engage and create content, there are available platforms. I also know of very young students I'm working with from with Little Yellow Beetle, creating mobile apps for people who are making anonymous accounts for dealing with stress and anxiety, so that you don't have to be a face. Like your troller, you can be faceless and you don't have to tell someone who you are, but you can seek help. So I think the society is opening up to this aspect as well. But I'm actually not aware of people who are financially providing help or like taking care of these people and taking them to courts. However, I do know of, a lot of people, when I was working with the Obama Foundation, I know for a fact that there have been a large part of our audience, and I'm really proud to be Indian when I say this, a huge chunk of our generation has taken up causes which are really close. So for helping transgender communities or trafficked children, who reach out to them online, and they provide security and help and all kinds of legal solutions possible. So there are people offline for not particularly trolling, but other kinds of issues that are being dealt with.
That's so much of information, and thank you so much, Malika. I would only like to, my takeaway from the entire thing of whatever you said was, wear your mask. I will remember it, and I will surely tell my children also the same.
Yes,
whether you're online or offline. Yeah, absolutely. So it was amazing chatting with you, and it's been a very sensitive topic of trolling, systematic, deconstruction of the entire thing and how we have to deal with it. And to all our viewers across the globe, it is a very serious thing, but it can be dealt with. And if you don't know where to go, you have a lot of communities, you have a lot of people who are there to help you out.
They can reach out to me, I can help them. I can definitely help them identify a lurker and a paid troller.
So here we have Malika Bajaj for you, who would help you out with the situation as well. So thank you so much, Malika. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And you have been conferred with the award of the Iconic Woman Creating a Better World for All. Many, many congratulations.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Thank you so much, Malika. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Stay safe.
Likewise. Bye-bye.